Hello and welcome to another episode of the Super League. We are getting close to the end of the season. Things are really starting to hot up in terms of the playoff spots. We had our first confirmed qualifier last week, and yeah, all to play for tonight. As you can see, we've got a bunch of interesting games coming up tonight. We've got fourth versus second. That's Aster and Bolton. BTEC and Hooligans down at the bottom, fighting it out to stay ahead of Swindon, who are obviously finding a bit of form recently. We've got Chudley, who are still in the running for the top six spots. We have got Churchtown taking on the Sloths. Churchtown, obviously, the first team to qualify. We've got Dragons, still mathematically possible, I guess, up against Aster, who are also chasing sixth. Another contender for six is Panathinaikos, who are just behind, coming up just after. They're away to Midlothian, who have had such a poor run of form recently. And finally, we've got Valin United desperately looking for a win after a very, very poor run of form. And they're up against Swindon Devils, who are obviously doing pretty well in terms of getting results at the moment. Let's remind ourselves of what happened last week. We had Aster beating Midlothian 3-2, that dramatic finish from them. We had Bolton Phoenix and Dragons playing out a 1-1 draw. Bolton Phoenix with a bit of a reserve side out there. Hornets at home to Valin with a bit of a surprise win, I guess, 2-1. But given Valin's form, maybe not that much of a surprise. Churchtown doing particularly well at the moment. 2-0 winners away at Hooligans. Very, very strong sides that Kieran have been put out recently and given good results for him. Panathinaikos beat BTEC 2-1. Sloss beat Chudley 2-1 in a very interesting game there. And finally, Swindon Devils had that draw with Arsenal Celtic. So yeah, continue their unbeaten run, Swindon Devils. If we're looking at the table, as mentioned, we've got the Q next to Bolton Massive. They are now, with the last, 4 games, 4 rounds we've got remaining, they are no longer in any danger of being caught because they have a number of points. They have a number of points down to Aster Athletic with only 12 points left to play, and they obviously have a 14 point gap. Bolton Phoenix, in theory, they could still be caught, but they would have to lose all of their remaining games while everyone else wins all theirs. So probably mathematically not safe, but in every other way, pretty much guaranteed. Then we've got Midlothian Ardsley. They're looking as if they're going to be safe as well. They're going to have to put in a bit of effort if they're going to catch Bolton or Churchtown. Well, Bolton probably most likely. And finally, Valin United, who could be in trouble. They're only 3 points ahead of Aster and Chudley, and Panathinaikos, of course, were still really in the mix. Sloths only 5 points behind with 4 games to play. Could still happen. Dragons and Hornets are still in there, but maybe it's a little bit of a step too far. But we'll see tonight how the results impact the table. We'll obviously have 3 games left, 3 rounds left after this one, and definitely still all to play for everywhere, apart from, I would perhaps say, for BTEC Swindon. Probably just a little bit too far away. The gap of 8 points for Hooligans, 7 for Hornets. It's going to be very, very difficult for them to reach the playoffs. And Churchtown well out in front, but they're still first and second. Obviously, potentially third place Midlothian could still get up there if Bolton and Churchtown start dropping points. So yeah, let's see how it goes as we kick off the action tonight. Obviously, the games are coming in a bit of a surprise order because of the stability of the of the game itself. But let's see how it works out. First up, we apparently have Chudley Cannons against Hoddesdon Hornets. A couple of changes for Chudley. We'll see when we get to that. And we've got Hornets, so let's see. And we're back with the clicking. So this will be this will be a recurring feature for the next couple of rounds, unfortunately, until we end the season. As discussed previously, we are obviously going to completely reset for season 3. Exactly how that's going to look is to be decided, but hopefully there'll be some more information out on that shortly for those who are interested. First up, let's have a look at Chudley Cannons and their formation, their lineup. So a couple of changes for them. Resting a couple of players. So Lee Chun-so is not playing. Rossini's back up top. Harasimovic is making a rare appearance for them. Apart from that, we've got Finnan on the right-hand side. As the Bruyere is out, Baumer is still playing. We've got Van Bommel and Mark Kerr playing in that central midfield role. Hoping Chudley will be hoping that they'll be on top form tonight in terms of creating chances for some of the front players. They've been going well recently, Chudley. A bit of a spanner in the works with that 2-1 defeat last time out at Sloths, but I think Scott still has hopes of a playoff spot, definitely. And with those players that he's got at his disposal, I mean, unknown quantities, you could argue, Harasimovic and Shax, but Shax has done well. If Harasimovic can be anything like what Lee Chun-so has been putting out, then definitely in with a good chance here. And Rossini can always score goals. He's just not really shown it this season. Up against the Hornets, who are pretty much unchanged as far as I can work out. There's a couple of changes on the bench, but the starting lineup is pretty much the same. He's obviously tweaked his formation previously, gone completely away from the more traditional formations that Craig had always kind of put out, the 4-1-3, 4-1-3-2, and sort of the gammon formation and other sort of like standard variations, and gone with more of a Super League style formation. Yet to find a huge amount of success with it. It's been up and down, but he's sticking with it for this game against Chudley Cannons. Tristan, Batistuta, Tsigalko, really a powerful front three, but maybe just not getting 100% out of them, apart from in that first game when obviously Batistuta got his hat-trick. We'll kick off this one, and we'll see if Chudley can keep on the pressure. Obviously, they desperately is a strong word, but they definitely need a win here to keep the pressure up on Aster Parmouth, because an even Valen, a defeat here would be a bitter pill for them. But that could bring Hoddesdon into the mix, depending on the rest of the results. But let's see how it goes. Good early start for Hoddesdon Hornets. A couple of good chances for them already, but Rossini must score for Chudley, but apparently didn't. Andre with another good save. We'll probably be seeing more of that today, or certainly him in action with Hornets creating a bunch of chances here in the first 20 minutes. Mark Kerr already on a yellow card after just 17 minutes. That can't be good for for his prospects for the rest of the game. Same with Lucio picking up a yellow card there. Huppier with a yellow now. That's pretty much been the majority of the action here. There's been a couple of good chances for mainly for Hoddesdon Hornets, I would say, but Rossini's had a couple of attempts for Chudley as well without actually finding the back of the net, and then a handful of yellow cards. Oh, and there's Sean Davies with an early injury there. El Guerra can play there, can't he? Yep. So we'll pop him in there. Even El Guerra will pop in there. And we're coming up to half time. Yeah, so fairly even first half. A couple of shots on target for each side, but a little bit wasteful from the Hornets. Good pass completion, strong in the tackles, headers sort of 50-50, but a little bit of accuracy lacking there in the Hoddesdon Hornets side. They could have perhaps had an early lead there. A fairly even distribution of the play and possession as well. If you look at the Chudley Cannon stats, Steve Finnan coming in for Estebaria, obviously trying to do his best, but they're not really finding his feet in that first half. Fairly decent in terms of his passes, but they're not really contributing much else. It's really been more sort of Mark Kerr who's been doing a brilliant job, but there are very, very few key passes. I mean, Liverani's had one, and that's been about it. Shax, Rossini and Liverani all with attempts on target, but all of them saved. Yeah, good defensive performance from Mark van Bommel there, 5 tackles, but he's in the central midfield for a reason. Yeah, it's perhaps not just to make a bunch of tackles. A little bit more creativity going forward is probably what his manager will be looking for here. Hippier and Rocky Jr. solid at the back, not have huge amounts to do, but yeah, they've done a decent job. Andre again getting an 8, very, very shrewd signing from the Chudley Cannons manager. Hornets not doing too badly either. A few more 6s. I was going to say a bunch. There is a bunch. There's a few more 6s for them. Again, struggling with the key passes, so maybe struggling with the quality. Joey Goodjohnson is obviously back in a familiar position for him, but one of the key players of the season for Hoddesdon Hornets in that DMC role. But scoring goals has not been their strong point this season, despite the lineup that they've had or the players they've had at their disposal, and that unfortunately for them continues to be the case. Tsigalko with 4 shots and none of them on target. That's got to be a disappointing view for the manager. Things could pick up in the second half. Obviously, we'll have to see what happens when the players get back on the pitch. Will it matter that Sean Davies has been injured? Will El Guerra will he live up to the pressure and put in a good shift for Hornets? You never know, but we'll have a look at the second half and see what happens. Again, a good early chance for Tsigalko. Another chance for Tsigalko. Must have been 7 chances for him now, and still not scored. So that's probably, that could, as we say, come back to haunt them. Oh, there's Joey Goodjohnson going off. We'll put Lundberg in there, and that's going to be okay for Hornets with only 14 minutes to go. It's not been a great second half, this one. Let's see if anything happens in the last 10 minutes or so. Obviously, both teams with chances, mostly with the Hornets, but they just haven't been able to take them. And the question is if they'll get sucker punched right at the death here. No, Frey with a good save, and it stays 0-0. Yeah, good goalkeeping performances, good defensive performances from both sides. Plenty of offsides to be to be had as well. Disappointing, I would say, probably for both managers in terms of not getting 3 points at this stage of the season. A 0-0 doesn't do anyone any favors and could potentially open up a bit of a gap for Chudley to the top six. So not a great evening's work for the guys. Let's have a look. Yeah, Hadasimovic and Rossini, obviously the two coming in for Lee Chun-so and Amoroso, and they are obviously the main kind of not the downfall of the side, but their lack of contribution and goal scoring has probably cost Chudley here. But the games are coming thick and fast now. There can be fitness issues, as we see Steve Finn is down to 80% at the end of the game. But apart from that, pretty good fitness on the Chudley Cannon side. You also don't want injuries, so it's a tricky one. Andre getting man of the match. Good goalkeeping performance from him, as we've grown so used to seeing. And overall a solid performance from the Cannons, but they should probably have picked up 3 points here if they wanted to be really right in the running for those playoff spots. But we'll see. A lot can happen depending on the results later on this evening. Sebastian Frey also getting a 9 down the other end, so two good keeper performances. Apart from that, a couple of the guys obviously played themselves up in the second half, up to 7s. Not really great. I mean, Maxim Tsigalko, maybe he's on the wrong side or something like that. Anyway, he does not like to get chances in those positions. 7 shots, only one of them hitting the target. That's really the key issue for Hornets tonight. The wastefulness of Maxim Tsigalko. You didn't think you were ever going to say that, but apparently that's cost them the 3 points tonight, and that will be them. I mean, we'll see the results, but with only 3 games left, that should be curtains for Hornets playoff chances. To be honest, only getting 1 point here. So overall, probably not the best game we're going to see all evening, and from the manager's perspective, probably a little bit disappointing in terms of progress towards the the top 6. And you're never going to be happy if you don't score a goal in the Super League. That's how it is. Next up, we have BTEC Troopers against Hooligans. BTEC with a couple of interesting changes, both in terms of lineup and possibly formation, I seem to recall, but we'll have a look in a minute. Hooligans with just one enforced change, Tariba West suspended, and I think they say Sol Campbell, one of the two, comes in again to replace him. But let's see how quickly we can get through to the actual game itself, through this little clicking episode that we've got going on here before each match that we are going to have to get used to. I was going to cut it out, but 10-15 seconds, I'm sure you can live with that rather than me having to spend time doing the edit. Anyway, here's the BTEC Trooper formation. They're going all in, basically, it looks like. They want goals. Ian wants goals for his side, and he's obviously put some attacking players on there. Palermo, Pizarro, both in. Akahawa, who's been doing relatively well recently, are in there. Gomez is playing, Lucas Neal is playing. We've got Emerson Dyer in midfield, Abel Savio in the DMC role, Ferdinand Nestor, and then Buffon at the back. An interesting formation. It's not often you see players in these positions in the kind of AML, AMR actual role. You see AMLs and AMR players in there often, but usually a bit further down with longer arrows on. But he's trying to utilize the space, obviously, that do exist when you play Hooligans out wide, because they are so narrow. So we'll see if Emerson Dyer and Abel Savia are capable of stopping the front players of Hooligans, because on paper this should create chances for BTEC Troopers. Interesting to see a couple of faces, not new faces, but Lucas Neal, Ronald Gomez, that we've maybe not seen so much of, and Abel Savia as well getting a run out. That's interesting as well. He's got David Proton on the bench, who could perhaps also play there, and Constantino can come in, Danielson, so plenty of options. In terms of Hooligans, I mean, a lot have been said about their formation, so we won't dwell on that. Sol Campbell comes in at the back, Crosses is still playing. We've got Olise Emerton, Adrianino Kennedy. I mean, he had such a good spell, and now end of last season and beginning of this one, and he's just remained a fixture, even though he's not really contributed a lot recently. We've got Ronaldinho, who obviously can contribute on his day. Salas and Santa Cruz up front. It'll be interesting to see if Hooligans can get a result here. BTEC, of course, had a couple of good games and then back down to earth last week with a 2-1 defeat, I think it was. We'll kick off the first half and we'll see who get the better of this encounter with BTEC Troopers and Hooligans. Pretty good start for BTEC. Definitely creating chances, but They are a little bit short at the back, and that could obviously be an issue for counter-attacks. Rocky Santa Cruz, Salas, wasteful as they have been pretty much all season for Hooligans. Got a few goals between them, but nothing spectacular. Ronaldinho, a man of magic, could maybe do something, but he decides not to. Bit of a poor first half, a very poor first half, not very action-packed at all. BTEC have seen plenty of the ball, but been playing in the Hooligans half as well, but not really created a whole bunch. A couple of key passes, one for Ronald Gomez, who's had seen a lot of the ball, and one for Pizarro as well, but nothing really created. Rio Ferdinand's been pretty solid. Alessandro Nesta's had absolutely nothing to do at the back, so a very quiet day for him. Just 4 passes and just chilling, basically, just hanging out. Claudio Pizarro very active in the air. I guess there's been some crosses coming in from the wingers, but nothing really interesting has happened yet in the first half for BTEC. How only getting a 6, maybe he's been feeling a little bit left out there. Who knows? Looking at the Hooligans side, Salas had a good pass to Santa Cruz, I think, at some point. Ronaldinho had a chance. Crosses is doing well. He's obviously come in and taking his chances. Good defensive performance from him. Good passing as well. Sol Campbell's back in there. There's a solid side. It's just they're not getting anything really out of it at the front. I think perhaps this kind of DMC focus for a lot of teams has been an issue for facing them for Hooligans, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes in the second half. Obviously, can probably only get better in terms of entertainment. Shouldn't speak too soon. Well, there's a goal for Pizarro, so definitely we've already had more action 3 minutes into the second half than what we had in the first. And there's Akahawa, who wasn't doing well in the first half, even though he has been on form of late, so that's good to see him coming in with a goal. Ronald Gomez doing okay out on the wing. I wonder if he's been a catalyst for any of this in terms of getting crosses in. He had been involved a lot in the first half. Now it's just a question of whether BTEC can hold on and whether they can avoid to get any red cards, because that has been an issue for them in the past. Hooligans are trying here towards the end, creating a couple of chances, but not really breaking anyone or anything down, and it finishes 2-0 to BTEC Troopers after a much better second half display for both teams, to be honest. BTEC just a little bit more clinical, actually putting 2 of their 3 shots away, whilst Hooligans did not manage to score on any of those. A bunch of offsides, 24 free kicks given. In terms of passing, fairly decent for BTEC, good tackling as well, and dominating Hooligans in the air. So that'll be interesting when we see the individual player stats. Good in terms of possession. BTEC well-deserved winners in this one. If we look at the stats of the players, I mean, Rio Ferdinand completely shutting down the opposition. 10 tackles, 10 of them won, 7 of them key. Bunch of key passes for the players here, doing really well in the second half. And remarkably, Alessandro Nesto and Martin Palermo, maybe not the people I would have pointed out to get the assist, but nevertheless, there they were. Ronald Gomez making the most of the space that he was afforded down on the right hand side. He's trying at least. I mean, his pass completion rate is pretty abysmal, but he is trying, I guess. So that's a good thing. Buffon obviously safe in goal. Abel Savia not doing a bad job there either. Kieran Dyer in that midfield role. I mean, he is a good player and very versatile, but maybe not his best position and not his best performance either. Nesta didn't really have much else to do in the second half. He's having a bit of a free ride here, just kind of chilling. Doing nothing, couple of tackles, couple of headers, but not really participating in the passing. But overall, as we've seen all throughout the season, brilliant average ratings from the BTEC players, and on this occasion they actually get the 3 points to show for them. So that's good news for them in terms of getting off the bottom bit of the table. Quite strong performance from Abel Savia in that defensive midfield role as well. If we look at Hooligans, Stefan Kloss, who's been kind of up and downish this season, not doing a brilliant job. Emerton and Samuel, Sol Campbell, Crossass and Sunday Olise, they're doing okay defensively, 7 and 8s, but as we've seen with Hooligans, unfortunately, they don't have anything. They don't offer anything going forward. Probably one of the lowest scoring teams in the league, if not the lowest scoring, unfortunately. And yeah, it's just unfortunately it's just not worked out for them. Whether they don't have the players, whether it's a morale thing after a long season of not picking up any kind of consistency in terms of results, it's difficult to say. Ronaldinho in there making 8 tackles as well. He's that's not where you get the most out of him, obviously. So he's whether he's disobeying manager's orders or if he's just not feeling it at the moment. It's hard to say, but not a good performance from him. He gets a 7. It's better than the 2 strikers, but still not not what the manager will be looking for. So a good result for BTEC. Obviously that probably shifts Hooligans further down the table, but neither side really with a realistic chance of reaching the playoffs, obviously. So it's really just the honor that's at stake here, and BTEC takes the 3 points and the bragging rights in this one. Next up, a game that is really important for both sides, you would suggest. So let's see how this goes. Why is that a thing? Okay, that's fine. Oh, they have a new tactic. That's right. Yeah. So if anyone who's been having a look on Twitter, obviously the Midlothian assistant manager has been responsible for this calamity. Well, it might work out well, so let's not call it a calamity. But for this for this hybrid tactic, which is interesting to say the least, to be honest. They have a lot of injuries and suspensions, etc. at the moment, Midlothian. And so we've seen Addo and Scalia starting. Varlamov is in there. Alex getting a game. Petkovic on the right-hand side. And Archie back, obviously. Continue to be just below the level of a proper superstar. Had such a good start to the season and has still been doing quite well, but he's just not been getting the goals, and his kind of drop in form has coincided with Midlothian having a bit of a struggle recently in terms of getting results. For I would say the last 3 or 4 weeks it's been difficult for them, but nevertheless an interesting tactic. It's not often that we see these kind of conditional arrows. I mean, Hooligans has got 1 or 2, but moving left, right, up, I don't know how it'll work out, but it'll be interesting. At least none of them are facing backwards, which is a good start. Christian Vieri, one of the top scorers in the league, will be see what he has to offer tonight against Panathinaikos. Midlothian will need to win this one in order to keep it interesting in terms of who's going to finish in the top 2. And they are really the main contender, but with all those injuries and a new tactic, will they be able to beat Panathinaikos? That's the question. Panathinaikos is in a familiar formation, but there are a couple of changes here. So I believe this is the formation they had last time out as well. But there are a couple of changes. So Udese is suspended. Eddie Pope comes in for him, and Riquelme is dropped to the bench, and Joe Cole comes in on that AMLC kind of role next to Ebisan behind Thierry Henry. They're obviously 2-1 winners last time out, Panathinaikos, and I'm no doubt that Chris Mack would take a repeat in terms of results. Pavel Nedved, we'll see what he comes up with. Panathinaikos player of the season, as I mention every time I see his name. They do have decent players. They have a good, solid formation here, and obviously Panathinaikos were in the playoffs last season, so it'll be interesting to see if Chris Mack can equal that or can get the same kind of result out of his side, and obtain that playoff spot as Panathinaikos did under Joe last season. Let's see how it goes as we kick off the first half. Midlothian at home to Panathinaikos. Midlothian in that new interesting formation, and Neil Scally's there. He obviously has proven a match winner for Midlothian in the past. Let's see if he can do that again. It looks as if it's all about Panathinaikos in the first 20 minutes. 40. Oh my goodness, time flies. And there's Christian Vieri. Oh, he's been ruled out for offside. Oh, I thought that Midlothian had taken the lead here. They haven't, and it's Jogatas with the goal that breaks the deadlock proper for Panathinaikos. He was very, very good for under the previous manager. He obviously a very influential player down on the left-hand side. Yet to find exactly that same level of form, but he has been doing a decent job, and obviously now shown his worth for his new manager. A poor performance from Midlothian in the first half. They had that goal ruled out for offside, but not really created much apart from that. Panathinaikos with 4 shots, 2 on target, a little bit better. In terms of possession, pretty much in the middle of the park, but Midlothian completely failing to hold on to the ball for some reason. Only 43% possession. That's not a good look, to be completely honest. And I don't think the managerial duo, regardless of who's been in charge of the setup here, will be too happy with that. If we look at the stats of the individual players, Klump and Hofland are doing pretty good at the back. Everyone else is doing pretty poorly. Christian Vieri obviously had the goal disallowed. Back is on a 7. Van der Vaart, Scally, Petkovic, Alex, they're not getting anything out of it so far tonight. Maybe, I mean, if you look at the fitness amongst the players, Christian Vieri is down to an 80. Obviously, he'll probably come off at some point unless he can kind of struggle through the rest of the game. But the rest of them, maybe the fitness will prove to be a decisive factor in the second half. Let's have a look at Panathinaikos. They've not been that much better, but they do have a lot more 7s than 6s, obviously. Eddie Pope, the only one, was a little bit disappointing. Cannavaro with a 7. Jogatas on a 7 with that goal. The assist came from Nedved. Let's not say anything else about him. Ebesand, a little bit disappointing. Obviously one of the top scorers in the league last season. Had such a brilliant job, but wasn't given a chance under the new manager really to shine. Not a consistent run of games anyway. And he's obviously failed to do anything. He swapped out with Kelme for Joe Cole. Joe Cole's had 4 passes. He's completed 2 of them and done a tackle and still gets a 7 for his troubles. So I guess that's something. If you don't do anything, you don't do anything wrong much anyway, but that's perhaps a little bit generous. But we'll see if Joe Cole can pick up some pace in the second half. Maybe playing against Neil Scally is just too much of a of a challenge for him. But we'll see in the second half if Midlothian can find a way back into this, if they can start creating some chances without being offside. Of course, that would be helpful. Seen Scally's name in there a couple of times. There's Nicky Butt as well. Jogatas. I see a lot of defensive midfielder names, to be honest. There's Thierry Henry beating Magnus Hedman easily. The Scally, Hofland. There's a bit of back, but yeah, it's still Varmalov. It's still mostly defensive players. Names I see popping up there. Nicky Butt. I mean, Nedved again. Addo. Hedman saves it. Salihamidzic. There's really, I don't know. There was Joe Cole popping up a little bit. There's really not a lot in the attacking players tonight. But yeah, I was going to say a game of 2 halves. It's not really. It's a game of 2 goals, one in the first half and one in the second, both of them for Panathinaikos, and fairly uneventful. Never really look as if Midlothian were going to create anything, to be honest. They had that goal disallowed, and after that it was kind of downhill from there. 4 shots, 2 on target. Yeah, out fought and out thought by Panathinaikos here, and yeah, in terms of where the possession, I mean the numbers of possession was maybe growing slightly, but yeah, that's not gone well. Clearly, with the amount of injuries and suspensions they have, Midlothian, it was always going to be tricky, but they need to refine that form if they're going to have a chance of reaching the final. Obviously, they're probably pretty much guaranteed to be in the playoffs. We'll see, but yeah, with Panathinaikos winning this one, then they are in a good position as well in terms of reaching the playoffs, and it's going to be tricky for sides like Aster and Chudley, especially as Chudley didn't pick up 3 points tonight. Let's have a look at the Midlothian stats. Magnus Hedman doing an okay job. Complete lack of creativity, unfortunately, for Midlothian. 2 key passes in the whole game. That's really not. That's not what you're aiming for. In the end, it's not a bad. There's no like terrible performances. They're all doing okay in terms of tackling. The pass completion rate is pretty good. It's just not going forward. Unfortunately, Petkovic getting a 6, Scally a 6, Addo a 6. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure you're getting the most out of these players in these particular positions, and obviously starting Christian Vieri. I don't know if his fitness was low from the beginning or whatever, but it's definitely low now. So it'll be interesting to see if he recovers for the next game. Otherwise, we'll see Comandini or Impensa, someone else maybe coming in and doing a job. Back not scoring, also a bit of an issue. But apart from that, I mean, They still have a decent side. I think Midlothian, if they can get some of the players that they currently have injured back, I mean, they need to keep her back, obviously. I think Steven Gerrard is out for the season, but a couple of other guys, Gattuso could come back in. Ortega, I think, has been out injured as well. So they still have folk to come back. They still have a decent side, Midlothian, but they will be playing someone like Panathinaikos probably in the playoffs, and they need to be better, yeah. They need to do a little bit better. Panathinaikos can't really say anything wrong with that performance. Ambrosini getting a 9, solid from him. Jagatas as well with the golden, and Thierry Henry, obviously. Good player, doesn't always play. Been a bit sort of in and out in the side earlier, but I think now Chris is sticking with him, and he's obviously repaying his manager's faith, getting a goal there. Crucial performance from Ambrosini, probably the difference, having him for Panathinaikos in that role, next to Nicky Butt, who also did a half decent job, but Ambrosini really a dominant player, up against Scally, Addo. It's a bit of a different kettle of fish to have Ambrosini there. So he did a good job. Nedved did a good. Everyone did a good job apart from Joe Cole and Ebisand, who might find themselves on the bench again next week. We'll see what Chris Mack comes up with. But overall, he should be happy enough with that performance. Eddie Pope obviously been left a little bit. Not alone, but it's a harsh getting a 6. I mean, 22 completed out of 25, 7 out of 8 tackles, but losing 2 headers, maybe a little bit of a harsh one. But we'll see. We'll see if he gets a game again. But Udesa should be back. So, and no yellow cards to any of the to Cannavaro or anyone down there. So there probably will be Udesa back in the lineup for next week. Anyway, good news for Panathinaikos. That helps them in their pursuit of a playoff spot, and poor news for Midlothian, because if Churchtown and Bolton win tonight, then that's a big gap to close in the last 3 games. We'll see if Churchtown win tonight. Next up, we have got Churchtown against Somerset Sloths, who I believe, yes, NDI came back in. That was it. Oh gosh, here we go again. So let's see how it goes with Churchtown against Somerset. Obviously, Churchtown already qualified now, can't be caught by anyone in the bottom 8, so they are secured of their playoff spot. Kieran doesn't look to have rested anyone as a response to that. Obviously, want to secure that top 2 finish more than anything, which gives you an easier run in terms of the finals. Let's have a look at the starting lineup. Maldini's back in. He's got Silvestre next to him. We've got Welsh, David Sorchinski, and Duff. Ferguson, Robin, Van Nistelrooy, and Mackay. So no one really. I mean, Henrik Larsson is still missing. Obviously, Turam is out, in and out of the side. In terms of like happy and unhappiness, that can be a bit of a struggle, obviously, for the manager to manage that. But he still has a very, very strong side here, especially if Robin can deliver in that role where Henrik Larsson is now missing. That's probably going to be the key. But Van Nistelrooy's back in. Mackay gets a rare start as well. That's maybe the only place where he's resting someone, because I don't think Mackay has been flavor of the year, flavor of the season in the Churchtown camp. But a strong lineup. We'll see if Mike Duff can come up with the goods again. He had a good start and slumped a little bit, but still a good player, obviously. John Welsh, brilliant on that left hand side. He comes in, he does a job almost wherever he plays, same as Sorochinski. Maldini and Silvestre, perhaps not the strongest two at this point. When they started the season, we had Turam, Maldini, and Khan at the back. Very, very, very solid for Churchtown. Silvestre, Maldini, Khan in season 2, maybe starting to be a little bit, but we'll see. They'll put in a decent display, no doubt, or put me to shame with being useless. So Crespo comes in. We're seeing Crespo again. Crespo gets a start. I'm not sure if I misunderstood it, but that's what it says in the instructions. Ndiaye in for Verens and Crespo in for Joao Paiva. So we'll see what Crespo can do tonight. Apart from that, it's unchanged from Sloths. They've had some good form recently, Sloths. I mean, I think it's really the start of the season that was terrible for them. It's difficult to turn around once you open up that gap of like 8-10 points to the teams in front of you. Then it's a long, hard way to get back there. But we'll see if they can make a step tonight, or if Churchtown can cement their top spot in the league. Good early start for Sloths. A couple of chances for them. A good start for Sloths, but then it kind of like sucked after that. I'll probably put Alessandro out there and then just run with it. can't have them getting overrun by the wingers. So that's a poor one. Obviously, that's something that BTEC and Sloths. I mean, I'm not sure if it's just a perception. I think there's plenty of sides with poor discipline in the league, but the Sloths definitely one of them, and they'll be disappointed to lose Solari so early on. They'll have been less disappointed by the first half in general. It's still going to be 0-0? Yeah, still 0-0 at half time. Churchtown with the best of the chances, the most of the chances. 4 shots on target, lost just with the 1, as you'd probably expect considering they've played so long against 10 men. But would have perhaps thought a little bit more from Churchtown with Van Nistelrooy up front, him getting in amongst the goals early on. Who knows if that's to come in the second half, but let's see, in terms of the individual performances, it's not been great from Welsh actually, so maybe it was a good idea to put Alessandro out there, otherwise he would have had free run down that left-hand side. Maldini not doing brilliantly, but also not a huge amount of involvement. He's just lost a bunch of tackles for some reason. Yeah, overall, just a bit of an awkward, poor one. I mean, Roy Mackay with 2 passes, 3 shots, and lost a header. I mean, I know qualification is secured, but maybe Kieran will kind of regret including him because that's a poor performance from Roy Mackay there. Maybe, giving him one last chance before the playoffs and see if he can do a job and change his morale and get him to come in and influence the stuff a little bit. But yeah, that doesn't seem to have worked out in the first half, definitely. In terms of Sloth, is Taibbi getting a 9. He's obviously keeping Churchtown at bay. 4 key saves for him. Patsatsoglu, Yepes, everyone else doing a pretty good job. It's a difficult for Van Bronckhorst for some reason. He normally plays well though. Kessman and Crespo. Kessman had a bit of an up and down season, I guess, as many of the Sloth players have had. Crespo getting a 7, but which is good for him compared to what he's done previously, but not scoring, and that's obviously where Sloth really need someone to step up, and they just haven't had a consistent goal scorer. But you can say that for a number of the teams actually. But we'll see if anything changes in the second half, if Churchtown can put this one to bed, or if Sloth can come up with a sucker punch and steal a point, or maybe all 3 against Churchtown here. Well, there's Roy Mackay showing how much the chairman knows about this stuff, because he's obviously just continuing. But there's Kessman with the equaliser. My goodness, they need to be careful here, Churchtown. They are allowing Somerset far too much space and not finishing off their chances and scoring their goals. But there's Ferguson, he has it disallowed. Van Nistelrooy was in an offside position, and Sloss with a couple of good chances here towards the end. Can they find a way back into it? Oh, there was Duff with a cross. There's another Duff from the Sloth side doing something. And there's Van Nistelrooy. There's Van Nistelrooy with the last-minute winner. Quality shines through. Rude is the scorer of the winning goal. Heartbreak for Sloth right at the death. They fought so hard to try and stay in the game. They actually came up with a couple of good chances of their own. Even pulled the goal back. Equalized rather. But right at the death is Ruud van Nistelrooy that secures the 3-win for Churchtown. Massive. 50-50 in terms of the possession. That's surprising considering that Sloth were down to 10 men. And yeah, Churchtown sort of a little bit. I mean, maybe they're kind of sleeping on the laurels a little bit now they have qualified, but a bit of a strange performance from them actually. Good average rating for all the players though, just kind of not finding that killer pass. Not many key passes actually. Mike Duff with a couple. It's Barry Ferguson who gets the assist eventually. Roy Mackay with, very, very poor passing. He doesn't really do anything in terms of tackling, and 7 shots and only 3 on target. I mean, that's almost Sigalko bad, but not quite, and he did get a goal. Ruud van Nistelrooy, of course, with the Man of the Match award, the winner right there at the death. Strong performance again from Soroczynski, who is completely stealing the limelight in midfield, which is surprising considering he's got Edgar Davids next to him, who should perhaps be doing a little bit better in terms of tackling. Maldini struggling maybe a little bit, but yeah. And John Wells just not really involved in that game at all, but ultimately it didn't really. Of course it matters, but on the other hand, it's 3 points, and they continue to sit comfortably at the top of the table. For Sloths, there was an assist for Andres D'Alessandro, who did a brilliant job covering on the right-hand side for Santiago Solari, who obviously went off with that early red card. Strengths and weaknesses. I mean, the whole team did a relatively good job, I think, considering being down to 10 men. Kessman getting the equaliser. Unfortunately for them, just not enough. there's not really much to say about that performance for the Sloths. It's solid, it's decent. They are playing the league leaders away from home. It's always going to be a bit of a challenge, and unfortunately today they just fell short right at the last minute with that Ruud van Nistelrooy goal. So a little bit disappointing for them, but the season is kind of at an end for Sloths anyway. It's just a question of seeing if they can pick up a couple of good results here to take some morale into next year. Next up, we have Valen United at home to Swindon Devils. And let's see, and Valen, yeah, I think we have completed all the changes. So that should be okay. And now it's just a question of actually getting there. Can Valen United get a win? I think Andreas is getting a little bit worried. I saw that it was an insta resign. If he doesn't get a result here, we'll see if he lives up to that. Seems a little bit of a of a knee-jerk reaction, considering they are still in the playoffs and still in with a chance of repeating their result of last season or even doing one better. As long as you're in the playoffs, you're in with a shout of the title. So obviously, bit of a knee-jerk one if that was to happen. But we'll see. It's Swindon Devils, and they've not been bad recently. I think Fyfie did his best to downplay the Swindon Devils' chances as he did against Ardsley. They got a draw there, so let's see what they can do against Valen United. A couple of surprising changes in the Valen United side. Peter Cech is getting a run out in goal. Roy Keane is out, is in the centre of midfield as Nakata and Fiore and these kind of guys completely drop out of it. So Stephen Reid and Roy Keane in central midfield, perhaps trying to see if you can get the same level of success that Chudley Cannons have had with Mark van Bommel in that central midfield role. Behind them, Lisa Rasu and Cafu, obviously, we know what they can do. He's back in his Valen narrow formation. Jens Jeremies, who's been doing a decent job, is in there as well. And then the front three favourites, Shevchenko, Saviola and Totti, who on their day are very, very, very good for Valen United and have secured them many points over the last 2 seasons. But just recently have not been at the races, not been firing, not been getting those goals that they need. Swindon Devils, obviously, with Fyfie's tactical masterstroke of pulling his AMC down to MC, keeping Elmander there, Zidane Seedorf, they've all been doing okay. Kluivert, Simone and Sagi. I think there's one change. I think it's Chris who came in for Mendes de Silva, probably. I think he might be suspended. Can't entirely remember, but I think that's the reason for it. I think that was the only change. Yeah, the Great Escape. Can he get off the bottom? I mean, technically it's still possible. So we will have to wait and see. We'll see how the wingers get on. I think that's that kind of that line of 5 there. I think that's something that is causing teams problems. But obviously they didn't create a lot against Ardsley, even though they got the 1-1 draw. But we'll see if it'll be any different against Valen tonight. Or if Richard Wright will have a busy day. But let's kick off the first half and see what happens. A couple of new faces there. I mean, Roy Keane's not a new face, but it's new for him to be in central midfield, and obviously Reid is coming in as well, and trying to do something for Valen United in terms of creativity. I think they basically just need Shevchenko to start scoring goals again. That's probably the main issue, or even Saviola. I think they do already have a bunch of goals between them this season. It's just it seems to have dried up somehow. I don't know if it's a confidence thing or whatever it is, and it seems to be the same in the first half here so far anyway, that the balls has come up to there. But there's Shevchenko finally breaking his stock and putting Valen ahead 1-0. I mean, this is the Valen performance that we're used to, just with the goal that has been lacking. So strong performance, completely dominating in terms of possession and where the ball is being played, dominating in terms of stats. In terms of performances, Jeremy, Stephen Reid, perhaps be doing a little bit better. There's not a huge amount of passing going on. Totti with an 8 and the assist. I mean, that's another one of the key things for Valen to get Totti playing. Cafu only with a 7. These are Sue already on an 8. Good fitness for most of the players, so that shouldn't be an issue in the second half. So they should be able to keep up the pressure that they put on Swindon in the first half. The passing, maybe not the best, but they'll take it. Well, and they'll take it, especially considering they're 1-0 up. Swindon Devils, so Chris has not had a great game. He's obviously up against a strong opposition. The same with Cambiaso, up against Francesco Totti, struggling a little bit there, and that's proven to be Swindon's issue, not the fact that the players down the wing, because they seem to be doing okay, to be honest. Mills and Cole are doing a fairly decent job, and yeah, so it's in the center of the park. They're struggling, but there is a narrow formation that Valen are putting out there. But if they can get a bit of creativity from Milton Cole, maybe they can get a goal back in the second half. But it's it's previously proven difficult to stop Valen if they're in good form or if they're having a good day. So we'll see if that day continues in the second half, or if Swindon can somehow find a way back into it. An early goal would do it for them, and they obviously had a couple of good chances there early on. But, oh, and here's Reed. Here's Reed with a goal for Valen United. That's 2-0. So it's now or never for Swindon Devils if they're going to get back into this one. I can see they're obviously trying, but there's an injury for Almanda. That's probably not what he wanted to see. We'll put Oliveira in there. Not what the Swindon Devil manager wanted to see. Almanda has been a bit of of not a well, if not a match winner, then at least an important player for them in terms of his performances in the last 3 or 4 games. But Valen United, just that slightly better quality of player, just shining through here, and I think they're going to hold on to this one. Yeah, they're not going to add to it. Yeah, Swindon Devils struggling to create anything in the second half as they were in the first, and Valen United, although they didn't have that many shots on target, then they converted 2 of the 5 that they had, and that obviously sealed the victory for them. Again, complete dominance in terms of possession, almost 60% possession, and not much happening down in their third of the pitch. Obviously, we'll see if that's reflected in the player stats. It definitely is. Peter Cech with a very quiet day at the office, getting a 7 for not doing much. Cafu only a 7 as well, and low on fitness. That could be a concern for Valen United. One thing that will be positive is Francesco Totti getting 2 assists and a 9, and somehow not getting man of the match. But there we go. Shevchenko with a goal. That'll be great news for him and his confidence. Stephen Reed as well with that goal. A bit of a surprise inclusion. You can see Nakata's on the bench, so it's not as if the options aren't there. But obviously the manager felt that something had to change in that MC role, because Nakata and Fiore moving Totti down there hadn't worked out in terms of it being a solution. I'm not sure if Stephen Reed and Roy Keane are a long-term solution in there, but obviously 2 sevens and a 2-0 victory against a Swindon side that have been performing quite well recently is a good result. And Shevchenko back in the goals, perhaps the most important part of it for Valen United. 8 shots, 3 on target for Francesco Totti though. He's trying his best, but yeah, just falling short. And maybe that's why he doesn't get the man of the match, due to his wastefulness in terms of headers and shots. Swindon Devils' performance, they're up against a much stronger side in terms of individual players, and they have struggled. They've struggled to create much. Yeah, I mean, let's not dwell too much on it. It's a difficult place to come. It's a balanced side. They're looking for a result. They're looking to get back in amongst the goals. They've got Shevchenko, they've got Saviola, Totti, they've got all the firepower in the world. Ashley Cole doing an okay job. Montero as well. Chris. I thought he looked promising when he first signed for Swindon Devils, but he's struggling to find his feet in the Super League, unfortunately. Zinedine Zidane doing a half-decent job, Cambiaso as well. The rest of the attacking players are just struggling a little bit against Lisa Rasu, Elmanda, Cafu, Ayala and Lasisi, who are obviously a very, very strong back 5 for Valen United. So nothing really on display for them in terms of chances to take. Patrick Kluivert had 1 shot on target, Chris and Danny Mills the other 2. So yeah, tricky day for Swindon, and they remain at the bottom of the table. Valen United very, very close to having secured that playoff spot. We've only really got Aster, I think, that we need to have a look at. A couple of others, maybe Dragons. I mean, well, we'll see how Aster gets on tonight, and we'll have a look at the table as a whole after the games. First up, we've got Ardsley against the Bolton Phoenix. Ardsley, obviously, currently 4th, and doing what they can to I changed this. And doing what they can to hang on to their playoff spot. They were looking so dominant early the season, Ardsley. Not so much in terms of results, because I appreciate there was a lot of 1-0s and things like that in there, but they were really looked as if they weren't going to lose, and then they lost a bunch. Have been shown slight signs of recovery recently, but playing a Bolton side that's definitely in form. Obviously, they dropped points, but they were resting a bunch of players and trying a few different things. I think Ryan's obviously just looking at it to make sure that he knows exactly what strings he's got on his violin to play come the end of the season and the playoffs. So a couple of changes in there. RT Celtic, not much has changed. I think he swapped Said and Vieira around at the back, and Recopa's back in for Claudio Lopez or whoever it was that was playing last week. So not much in terms of changes for RC Celtic. Has been been going okay for them recently. Morientes obviously has come in and showed a little bit of form again, but it's still it's a low scoring Arsenal side. I have to admit. But good players in all positions. Militos has come in and done brilliantly. Coufret has obviously done a brilliant job since joining Ardsley, and yeah, there's good players all over the pitch, plenty of talent, and Captain Patrick Vieira, if he can dominate as he did in the first half of the season, and to some extent he still is, then there's no reason why RC Celtic couldn't make the final. But they will obviously need to first of all stay in the playoffs, which it looks as if they're going to be doing, and they're going to have to get some confidence against sides like Bolton Phoenix. If Bolton beat them tonight, then it's going to be difficult to have that confidence going into a potential playoff game against Bolton, and then going, oh well, we recently lost to them anyway, so who knows. For Bolton, it's a question of getting the boys back in form. They're obviously missing some Brotta, but apart from that, it's a very strong and very familiar lineup they have here. Veron, Kuhl, Raul, Dakur, Dede, Sinoni is in for some Brotta. Obviously, Sinoni would still play, but not in this position. Stam and Neville Douglas. So it's really his strongest lineup that he's put out this season, Ryan. So we'll see how they fare in this match away to Ardsley. Nikki Forenko, another one along with Sigalko. I mean, such big names in the Super League in general, in the game in general, but in the Super League, they maybe just been found wanting just a little bit. So, I mean, there's always that argument whether a player is good because he plays in a good team or whether he is genuinely good. I mean, I will there's Morientes with the goal. Let's not get too carried away here. My point was going to be that there are players that for sure aren't any good, but because people always pick them and they play them in brilliant teams, then they do well, and that kind of reinforces their reputation, even though they aren't that good at all. Compared to some of the other ones, they might be cheap, yeah, but not good. Anyway, there wasn't really much else to talk about, to be honest. Bolton Phoenix with most of the chances, but they've not really done anything with it. They're back to conceding on every single shot, which is what Ryan tried to avoid when he was bringing in Rab Douglas, as having this goalkeeper that concedes on pretty much everything. But that's where we're at. Ardsley taking that 1-0 lead. 1-0 lead. Complete domination in the air by RC Celtic. In terms of possession, Bolton's had most of the ball, but it's been mostly in the middle of the park. And Ardsley riding their luck, but they did that they did that so well the first half of the season. Not so much riding their luck, but grinded out results, and it looks as if they're going in that direction with this game as well. We'll have a look at the individual stats of the players. Candela and Sauri, they can only really get better. Coufret is on a yellow, slight concern there. Milito again against one striker, he's not had much to do, but still gets a 7. Ibrahim Said on a 7 as well. Donati really not doing a lot of creativity in midfield. Patrick Vieira is running the show with a bunch of tackles and a header as well. Alvaro Recopa with 100% pass completion, getting the assist as well from Morientes, only on a 7. And Nicky Forenko hanging around on a 7, not really doing a lot. A little bit of creativity, a lot of solidness at the back, and a lot of aerial domination is what's doing it for Arsenal so far in this game. If you're looking at Bolton Phoenix, that's the worst first half performance that I've seen from Bolton Phoenix at all in the Super League, I think. Raul having all the chances. Raul maybe try and pass the ball to Montella and pass it along the floor. Don't play it to him in the air, because that's not going to end well. Yeah, the manager's definitely not going to be happy with this. 6s across the board. That's not often you see that, especially from a Bolton Phoenix side. That's hot on the heels of Churchtown. They'll be who'll be opening up a gap here if Bolton can't find a way back in the second half. But let's see what Ardsley have to offer. If Bolton can find a way back into it, maybe start converting. Raul could maybe start converting some of his shots. That would be a good start for them in terms of getting back into this. They obviously have to be careful and not let RC Celtic get a second, because with Ibrahim Said and Patrick Vieira in that defensive midfield, it can be difficult to get past. And it's been all RC Celtic in the first 15 minutes here, but Bolton are coming back into it, creating a couple of chances now.
Daku are probably obviously the weak point in that defensive block of RC Celtic. See if they can get past him. Montella there trying his hardest. Raul's trying his hardest, but no, they don't get through. And RC Celtic are back to the RC Celtic of the first half of the season, grinding out a 1-0 win at the expense of Bolton Phoenix. This is music to the ears of Kieran if he is listening, because that means that he has opened up some gap at the top of the table. I think 5 points down to Bolton Phoenix now, and bad news for any other chasers of playoff spots. It's really up to Aster now to keep up the pressure on all of the sides. With Valen winning, with Panathinaikos winning, with Ardsley winning tonight, then it's going to be very, very difficult. Free kicks and offsides, bunch of them in terms of the action zones, pretty much in the middle of the park. RC Celtic with a lot more possession in the second half. Let's see how that reflects in the player stats. Yeah, Patrick Vieira, captain, the Ardsley Hodgie, obviously winner of the Vieira lottery, and that's paying dividends for him now. A good solid performance from all of his players. Donati only getting a 6, but everyone else with a reasonably good performance. Half decent pass completion, good headers to be won as well. Nothing really obviously changed. It's still Recoba and Morientes with the assist and the goal. And a nice distribution across the pitch. Both the left and right hand side seem to see a fair bit of the ball, and a little bit of creativity, but that's obviously not what they thrive on. Ardsley is just on grinding out 1-0 wins. It's like what's the fella's name? Arsenal manager from a long time ago, George Graham. It's like watching George Graham's Arsenal, that were famous for a strong defense and for not being particularly entertaining. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Bolton Phoenix, on the other hand, where to start? Took a sip of water just to kind of gather my thoughts here, but Sinoni doing well. I don't know, it's just wastefulness, isn't it? It's wastefulness, it's aerial inferiority and wastefulness for the players. Plenty of key passes, so that's gone okay. Tackling is not looking too bad either. Creating chances is also quite good, but yeah, good goalkeeping performance from Landreau and a bit of wastefulness from the Bolton strikers. And that thing about the air, Montella only winning one header, everyone else not winning anything at all. That's a little bit scary. 34% of headers won. That's going to cause problems, especially with Landreau in good form for Ardsley. Yeah, what can Ryan take from this? Nothing really. He needs to be careful now with the other teams in the playoffs winning. It's still not 100% secure. Obviously, he'll be happy enough with the Midlothian result, but apart from that, other teams could be catching up at least to some extent. So he needs to get the pressure back on and get the form running for those playoff games. We'll see how many he'll have to play, but there will be some probably. RC Celtic, yep, grinding out results, getting into the playoffs in a good run of form. Patrick Vieira being Patrick Vieira, that's good news for Ardsley. And that leaves us with Dragon Destroyers against Aster Athletic. A couple of interesting changes, I think, in the Aster side, if I'm not mistaken. We can't do that. Well, we'll see. We'll see if there's a couple of interesting changes in the Aster side. I think there's some midfield changes. I believe they have all been implemented, but I'd kind of, second guessed myself there. I should perhaps check before I just blindly click continue. But that does increase the chances of the game crashing, which is a little bit, doesn't really matter in between the rounds, but now it's a little bit, oh no, I have done it, that's fine. Okay, we'll do Dragons first. We'll do not many changes here. Pamodokar comes in for Guardiola, and I think Lee Fowler comes on the bench. Those are the only two changes. Pamodokar obviously on the bench before, and Lee Fowler takes his spot. So yeah, they've had another up and down season. Dragons again. I was kind of backing them to maybe do a late run once Jamie figured out the formations and changed things around a little bit. Roy Keane getting back into form, scoring goals as well, but it's just been a little bit maybe just a little bit too ambitious. My predictions of them having a proper run at it here at the end of the season, but we'll see what they can do tonight. Anyway, they're up against an Aster side who absolutely need 3 points, especially the way that the results have been going this evening so far. Then it's not all or nothing, but it's all or very little for for Aster Athletic.
Um, Couple of changes, mainly in the central midfield. We've got Rosicky, Lampard, and Rui Costa coming in here. Placente and Zanetti and Vogel behind them, probably the strongest DMC lineup that he can have. Giuliano and Babel obviously strong at the back. Lehmann okay in goal. He does have his odd moment, but overall a strong keeper. And Guillaume and Brookink obviously showed last time out against Midlothian that's where the goals are to be found between those two. So we'll see if that'll work out for them against the Dragons tonight. But yeah, interesting to see how that three-man midfield works out, similar to what Swindon are doing with three guys next to each other with that arrow going forward into the AMC role. Maybe that is a solution to people playing very many and very strong DMCs. It didn't work out for Swindon tonight, obviously, but can it work out for Aster? That's the question. We'll kick off the first half and see what the Dragons can do at home to Aster Athletic. Good chances, a couple of good chances for Aster early on, but Dragons have had a couple of their own. Mark Viduka, with all people, with a header there. It's such a Jekyll and Hyde side, Dragons, and full of Jekyll and Hyde players that can, be invisible for a few games, then all of a sudden turn up. Robbie Keane doing things and then not doing things, and Rui Costa getting the equaliser for Aster Athletic. I think Alf had predicted that Lampard would get the first goal, but it wasn't to be. It was Rui Costa who got the opener. And there's Arnold Brookink. Yeah. He has got the strikers working for him. It did work to put Arnold Brookink up in that striker role, even though he's been predominantly been used in an AMC role previously. Plenty of chances for either side. Dragons have had 7 shots, 7 on target. Lehmann obviously having a good day. 5 shots, only 4 on target for Aster, but still putting out a good display and being 2-1 up is definitely not a bad thing. Dragons with all the possession and sadly for them not the killer instinct to put away some of their 7 chances. So now it's Brosek who's not delivering, and Carini only getting a 5. As mentioned, Jekyll and Hyde side, it always seems as if they have a player that's letting them down, either in first half or the second half or the whole game. Simon Davies getting an assist there. Ryan Giggs could obviously play himself up in the second half and do a little bit better. Mark Viduka has been brilliant after being poor for very, very long. It's difficult to know what you get with this Dragon side. Good in the air, but just not good at converting the chances. Perhaps it's all Lehmann. Lehmann's already on a 9 at halftime. That's a bitter pill to swallow for the Dragons. They play well. They get 7 shots, all of them on target, and then they've just got a brilliant goalkeeping performance down the other end. A little bit surprising to see Zanetti and Placenta playing so poorly, but they aren't up against direct opposition, I guess. So maybe they're just finding themselves with not a lot to do. Placenta not making any tackles and not doing anything to stop Simon Davies coming down on the right hand side. So that's not worked out well. Guillermo also not doing particularly well. Frank Lampard with the 2 assists. Maybe he should have come in earlier this season. You never know. I mean, the way that Lee Boyer, so as poor as Lee Boyer has been all season, maybe would have made sense to try Frank earlier on. We'll see if he can keep it up in the second half. Good fitness levels for Aster as usual. So if Lehmann can continue his strong performance in goal, then it's going to be difficult for Dragons. But on the other hand, an early goal and a bit of a drop in confidence for the Aster Athletic side could prove to make the difference. Aster side that's picked up a couple of red cards as well this season, especially among the DMCs. I think Vogel's had at least 1. But it looks as if they are struggling in the second half. It's Viduka again. They just can't stop him. And somehow he finds a way and gets that goal. And that's 2-2 now for Dragons. Can they find a winner? It looks as if it's all Dragons now. This would be, Rustico with the goal there. This is absolutely fantastic news to the teams that were already sitting in the top 6 bases, with both Aster losing, with Chudley losing. It'll be and Valen winning, Palmathanaikos winning. That's not going to be great for the excitement come the end of the season, I will say. But they're obviously great news for those 2 sides, and very bad news for both Aster and for Chudley Cannons not picking up 3 points tonight. And a great result for Dragons.
Dragons, who somehow probably climbed the table now. But let's have a look. Mark Viduka, man of the match. Ryan Giggs, as mentioned, he could play himself up in the second half, and the DMCs for Astra had not been at the races at all in that game. He gets a 10, he gets an assist, and there's an assist for Davies as well. And obviously Fabio Rustico, captain, with the winner there. Very, very surprising for the Dragons, but a great result nonetheless, especially when Robbie Keane and Pavel Brosik aren't turning up at all. Let's have another look here. Yeah, good passes, good headers, good performance all round. Obviously strong performance by Dragons. They have all of the possession. Not a lot of the place is down in their third, and yeah, Carini obviously played himself up in the second half after having such a shady first half. Palmodokar doing okay, but Tomasi getting a 9, obviously covering for him there with a bunch of tackles, 2 of them key as well. Ryan Giggs, he plays so well down that left hand side for Dragons. He's a very, very important player for him. You feel as if Dragons could have perhaps done a little bit better if they'd gone away from the kind of like slightly not weird tactics, but the ones that weren't really utilizing Ryan Giggs to full effect. He is probably one of the best players in the game as well down that left hand side. Often overlooked because he's not a defensive midfielder, so there's a lot of those guys that get a lot of praises, but he's been doing very, very well for Dragons. Alf will be disappointed with that second half performance of his squad in general. Babel, Placente, Javier Zanetti getting a 7 despite being outplayed by Ryan Giggs. Giuliano and Babel just not good enough for Holton. Mark Viduka, which is a bit of a surprise considering how poor Mark Viduka has been all season, but brilliant news for Dragons in terms of getting those points. It's going to be tricky now, but we'll see what they come up with, Chudley and Aster Athletic, in terms of tactical changes of what they're going to do to try and keep the pressure up on the top 6 sides. But it looks as if that's a big gap now for those teams with only 3 games to go. Right, let's see if we can get through this. So let's have a look at the table as it stands after 23 games. So due to the ineffectiveness of the Chudley Cannons and Aster Athletic, Bolton Phoenix, who also lost, have now qualified for the playoffs. Ardsley have reached the magic 40 points. Can still be caught, obviously, but that is unlikely. Midlothian still on 38. Valen United on 37. Pretty much safe-ish with 3 games to go. Panathinaikos, I mean, it's still tricky. They haven't got the easiest running of games, but Chudley Cannons, Aster, and I mean Dragons, they are 6 points behind. That is, it's not impossible, but it's very, very tricky. BTEC making an appearance in the top 12. So on the first screen that pops up, I think it's Hooligans that have dropped below the line after that result that they had there. Let's see. Yep, it is indeed 6 points up for Swindon if they're gonna make it out of the 14th spot with 3 games to go. It's definitely doable, especially with the form that Hooligans have been in. But let's see what happens for Fifey and the boys down there. But yeah, all to play for. Definitely all to play for in terms of the playoffs. I would say Aster, Chudley still in with a very realistic chance of making it. Panathinaikos and I would say Valen maybe still a little bit in the danger zone in the way that it's less than 6 points and the goal differences aren't really an issue for Midlothian. I mean, if it's Aster that comes up, maybe, but in terms of Chudley, they still have a negative goal difference, so Midlothian have that slight advantage, but they need to pick up points up in the top half of the table. Let's see the fixtures for next week. So we've got Aster Athletic at home to Ardsley. Let's go back to the table. Aster can win that and go to 34. Ardsley can win that and go to 43. We'll have a look at Bolton against Valen. That's a big game for both sides. If Bolton lose this one, they're level with points with Ardsley, which is obviously they're still going to be ahead because of their goal difference. But that's going to be tricky going into the last couple of games if they want to hold on to second spot. Valen United will probably effectively, with a win, secure their playoff place here, but that's not an easy place to go, Bolton, and to win. We've got Hornets against Churchtown. Churchtown obviously just looking to cement that number 1 spot. Hornets will be happy to pick up some points. We've got Midlothian against BTEC. Again, Midlothian, a win here will definitely cement their playoff spots. BTEC can continue. Can they continue to do anything? Yeah, they can continue to climb. BTEC can reach 10, 11, 10th, maybe even 9th. With a good run at the end, so that'll be interesting. Midlothian obviously in terrible form at the moment. Parmouth and Icos, big game against Dragon Destroyers. Who's going to turn up for Dragons? Is it going to be Viduka? Who knows? Potential banana skin definitely for Parmouth and Icos here, and if they lose that, Aster could get obviously 3 points at home to RC Celtic, and we have got down at the bottom, we have got Chudley Cannons away to Swindon. If Swindon don't find a way back into this, if Elmander is out for a longer period of time, yeah, well, Chudley pick up 3 points there, and then Parmouth and Icos drop to 7th if they don't win here. And then finally, Sloths against Hooligans. So 2 teams with not a huge amount to play for. Sloths can still make a bit of a good impression, and Hooligans obviously will be interested in not finishing 13th. So again, still something to play for those guys. Anyway, let's finish off by having a quick look at the player stats. So Patrick Vieira, Vincenzo Montella, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Cafu, Cannavaro, Berong, big names up there. Then Johan Vogel for some reason, Sambrota, Joey Gudjonsson, and then it becomes a little bit sort of random down here. They're so close together, but not an unexpected top 5 and maybe 6, and very strong players in there. A little bit surprising to see there are so few players with over an 8 average stats. I think that's a testament to how even the league actually is and how difficult to get top performances out of your players. Montella still out ahead, 15 goals. He needs to put on his shooting boots again. We've got Vieri and Shevchenko and Van Nistelrooy just behind him on 13. Then a bit of a gap down to back. Larson, who's currently injured, Kessman, Brosek, Morientis, etc. Mark Viduka on 10. Who would have thought that after the season that or the time that he'd had at Dragons, that he'd be on 10 goals, the same as Saviola. That's a bit of a surprise for me anyway. Lee Chun-so with 8 goals in 9 games, obviously in terms of average goals per game, definitely in the mix here. Assists, Barry Ferguson, the assist king of last season. He's joined by Nedved and Totti and Ryan Giggs on 8 assists. Dragons, look at Dragons here. Giggs, Davies and Brosek. My goodness, that's a bunch of assist makers. How many have they got between them? 14, so 22. And how many goals have Dragons got in total? Oh well, 41. So I guess they're only assisting about just over half of their goals. So yeah, that's a good one. Finally, let's have a look at the form. Dragon Destroyers form team of the moment with 3, unbeaten in 5, 3 draws and 2 wins, just ahead of Bolton Phoenix, who now lost the game. Churchtown starting to pick that up again, Ardsley picking it up again. We've got Midlothian and Hooligans. Aster down here at the bottom, that's not where you want to be if you're chasing playoffs. Valen with a win there, now things are looking up a little bit for them, the same for Parmouth and Icos. And yeah, so that's going to be very interesting. We'll perhaps have a quick look at what else is left here, especially for those playoff sides. Chudley then play Bolton. Parmouth and Icos are away to Ardsley. Definitely not easy games for them. Aster in the mix as well. They're away to Valen. This round is definitely in Chudley's, well, I was going to say in Chudley's favour. They do play Bolton, but they probably have a slightly easier game than the other two, if at all. What was it here? Aster at home to Ardsley. Ardsley, if they're grinders, then that's a tricky one. Parmouth and Icos to Dragons, and Chudley away to Swindon. Again, you could argue that Chudley have probably the easiest here and probably the slightly easiest here, and then in the last round we've got Aster against Chudley Cannons. That's going to be a big one if Parmouth and Icos is not already secured. If one of the sides haven't already secured that last playoff spot, that's going to be a huge one here. We've got Bolton Churchtown in the last round. It looks as if Churchtown will already have secured first spot by then, but that could still be a very interesting encounter, and obviously a great sort of like a premiere for what's to come in terms of the potential grand final with first and second, if they are still first and second in the league playing each other in the last round. That could be very interesting. Anyway, lots to look forward to in the coming weeks in terms of games, in terms of action. 3 weeks left of the regular season in the Super League. I hope you're still enjoying it. I hope that you still like to see your team doing well. We will have some news shortly about the next season and how that's going to be run, but yeah, that's all still to be decided. But for now, sit back, relax, enjoy the ride, and cheer on your side and see how far they can go. I hope you enjoyed the show. Lovely to join you on Sunday evening as always. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.